Welcome to the Ag Matters podcast. Agriculture matters because it's all around us and provides countless benefits to our economy, whether you live in an urban or rural community. From Steinbach to Swan Valley, from Melita to Neepawa, agriculture affects everyone and has a presence in every community, providing countless benefits to our economy and quality of life. Agriculture matters not only for the tens of thousands that work in the sector here in Manitoba, but for all Manitobans concerned about having a food system that provides access to affordable, nutritious food. It's not limited to farmers. We have veterinarians, agronomists, data scientists, researchers, financial advisors, HVAC technicians, commercial truck drivers, food processing workers, and so many more. Those working in agriculture are leaders in Manitoba's economic growth, significantly contributing to advancing Manitoba as a provider of safe, nutritious, sustainable, and affordable food at home and across the globe.
I'm Jordan Sasiwa, and today we are talking policy. One of the most important things to start this conversation with is the fact that agriculture is affected by almost everything, whether it's weather, politics, you name it, it has an impact on what's going on in agriculture. So what we thought we would do for this podcast, we're going to get two voices to talk about policy, how it affects what goes on in the production community, and how as consumers and producers, we can be better advocates for ourselves and maximize what is out there for us to access to ensure the policy is helping get the most results in agriculture. So we had to go start with somebody that knows a lot about that advocacy work and policy work. We went to Cam Dahl, Cam, General Manager of Manitoba Pork. Welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself and a day in the life.
Really good to be with you, Jordan. And I think that this is a really, really wonderful. This Agriculture Matters is a really good initiative. So kudos to the developers on this. Where do I come from? I've had a career, and it's scary to say, in that combines agriculture and policy work. So spent some time in Ottawa and have served as a commissioner of the Canadian Grain Commission. I was the founding president of Cereals Canada, and also worked as the GM for Manitoba Beef, and now at Manitoba Pork. So I almost have a full plate of food. I have beef and cereals and pork, and I need a little bit of cheese on there, and then I think I'm good. Maybe some potatoes. I think that over time of working in that mix of policy and government and agriculture, it really hits home that main point that you were making is that policy is critically important to agriculture producers, but it's more than that. It's critically important to people that work in our towns and cities. I will just take the pork industry, for example, because those are the statistics that I have at my fingertips. The sector employs 22,000 Manitobans. $2.3 billion in annual GDP is contributed by the pork sector. And those aren't just jobs in our rural communities. If you look at towns like Neepawa, it's not a town, it's a city. If you look like cities like Neepawa that are just exploding, driven by the pork sector, or Brandon. Again, how important the pork sector is to Brandon. Where Winnipeg is the bacon center of Canada, there's more than 2,500 people work at that maple leaf plant in downtown Winnipeg. So it's not just rural Manitoba that we're talking about. And the theme is, Ag Matters. Well, Ag Matters in our rural towns. It's driving investment. It's driving growth. And that's where we get schools and hospitals from and roads from. And it's also driving investment and growth in our urban centers as well. So Ag Matters, and it matters to everyone.
Well, and let's continue on that because, I'm from a small town, and watching as agriculture blossoms and this is, I think it's something that is very underrated, is the entrepreneurship of a lot of farmers. And you look at something like Neepawa, Nipawa has boomed, and it's this amazing connection to and I'm going to say the number. I believe you said 2.3, and then it was billion with a B.
With a B.
Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff where you sit back and you just say, how is this possible? And it's the advocacy work, because that much of any product has to go out past our borders. So how does that kind of play to it?
Well, that's a really good question. So we raise about 8 million pigs in Manitoba every year. 90% of that is exported, either as live animals and pork to the United States or pork around the world. So what happens outside of our borders is critically important, and this is one of the key advocacy areas is around trade and trade policy, and we're seeing the world become much more protectionist. We went through a period where Canada did a really good job of negotiating free trade agreements. I think we're actually the most connected country, connected to Asia through the Trans-Pacific Partnership, connected in North America through the Canada-US-Mexico agreement, connected to Europe through CETA. We're very well connected. And there was that appetite for, we went through the 1960s and 70s where growth was restricted because of protectionism, and we learned that lesson. Well, unfortunately, we've forgotten it. And that is becoming a stronger and stronger focus for advocacy is, not necessarily to negotiate new trade agreements, but to keep the ones we have open. We're seeing America first in our neighbors to the south. This is by far our largest and most important trading partner. To see barriers to trade go up, whether they're individual trade initiatives like our state initiatives, like Proposition 12 in California, or new labeling laws coming from the government of the United States, these are protectionist measures. And the Canada-US-Mexico trade agreement is coming up for renegotiation in a couple of years. Agriculture is going to be a target. We know that already. So we need both our federal and provincial governments to be on that right now, and to be advocating on behalf of agriculture in this province to secure our export markets. Because if we don't have those export markets, then there's, again, 22,000 jobs are at risk.
And so to that point, I'm a father, and what I just heard there coming from you is this is my kid's future.
Absolutely.
Especially if I'm in a town that is dependent on some of these things. So how, for your team, and I got to give kudos to Manitoba Pork, small but mighty team. The work getting done over there is fantastic. And again, 2.3 billion with a B. That's my hospitals, that's my roads, and I am grateful to the pork industry for that. And I think that's something I want that shouted from the rooftops more. So I love the buses as they go by with the good for me, good for me.
Thank you for that. I will pass that along. Absolutely.
But so to that point, how do I get involved? How does somebody like myself or a farmer? Because on the scale of farming, to my understanding, you've got the big players and you've got their family-run farms still, and multiple producers out there. How do we support the consumer and the Manitoban? How do we support the advocacy work going on at MB?
Well, I think there's a couple of points that I'm looking for, and the first one is just that acknowledgement from governments that we do matter. Ag matters. And you know what? I'm pleased with where our new provincial government is at on that. I'm seeing that acknowledgement that agriculture matters. So that's the starting point, is that we matter to this economy and we matter to the people of Manitoba. So, how can one person get involved? Well, have a relationship with your MLA. You know what? They want to talk to people. So sit down and have coffee with them and say, hey, you know what? These are my top 3 issues. if you don't know what your top 3 issues are, call me. I'll give them to you. Trade is at the one of the top of the list, but that's kind of the first point is develop a relationship with your MLA and MP. It doesn't take that much time. They're willing to meet with you. As I said, this summer when the legislature recesses for the summer, make an appointment. Go down, visit your MLA, have a coffee. They'll be happy to do that. And let them know that the industry is important to you. That is the most important starting point.
Well, and that is, I think that's something that most people don't realize is, and this is the note that I really want, and you nailed it off the start of this, but I want to drive it home, is that agriculture impacts and brings in large sums on the GDP. We've said pork's numbers, and I don't know the exact total of agriculture, but it's in the tens of billions of dollars.
Absolutely, it is. It's a driver of the provincial economy. So it's critically important.
And I work quite a bit in the protein industry with Protein MB, and we've seen there our mandate is to get to $10 billion for the protein, just protein. That doesn't, and for us, Ag Matters, of course, we're talking everything, grain import, export, the amounts, the sums of money. So this is something where, again, producers, I want them. And how would you go about telling someone that you're empowered? You drive the largest amounts of money into this economy. So when you speak, it's a powerful voice.
Yeah, that's exactly the message. Is that they really do matter, and they matter to politicians. And they matter to governments, and that is that is the basic starting point of having the discussion around all the other policy issues that we're advocating for.
Wonderful. Before we bring in our next guest, one last question to you: what does the future look like for your team and for things that you're focused in on?
Well, I'm really optimistic. I think that if we look around the world, the demand for what we produce is rapidly increasing. Food security is becoming more and more important to countries, and we can supply that. We can answer the questions around sustainability in the environment. We can answer the questions around humanely raised, and we produce a safe, environmentally friendly product at a reasonable price, and we can do more, and I think we are going to do more. And that applies for agriculture across the board in Manitoba. The growth potential is enormous.
Well, and you know what, my final thoughts on this and on policy and things is what I love most in this world is sports. And I love team players, and honestly, watching agriculture rise to the COVID, I don't think anything showed more of the team spirit of agriculture than watching all of the Manitoba Pork and the beef producers and everyone, the councils coming together to say, okay, you know what, things are changing. We're going to lead, and we're going to get ahead of this, and we're going to make sure that Manitobans don't feel the impact the way that I think a lot of other places did. And it's that hard work and that ensuring that we're on top of policy, and ensuring that the right people are in place in politics when we vote. Our vote counts, and I think that that's something to drive home.
You're absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Yeah.
Well, and that's it for this section of it. And Cam, we couldn't have had a better person. And I it's heartbreaking to me to end it here, because I know I've got decades of experience sitting there across from me that can show us exactly why Ag matters.
Well, I'd be happy to come back. Thanks, Jordan.
Wonderful. Pleasure. All right, and welcome back. We've got Kurt Siemens. Now, we promised you at the start of the show that we would talk to both perspectives and include a producer with this. So right now, what we're going to get into on the advocacy and on the policy front is a discussion with someone who has made it his life's work, one, to work with eggs, and two, to be involved as much as possible in that industry from the ground up. So, Kurt, it is a pleasure to have you on. Tell us a little bit about your career, not only the farming, but everything you've done sitting on boards.
Great. Well, thanks for having me on here today. I've been a lifelong farmer. I think I've taken 3 years off of my whole life in construction. Other than that, I've been a farmer since day one. I am third generation. My son is fourth, and his kids are on the farm now too. So hopefully we see the fifth coming. They're pretty short right now, but they can do that. And I have been on boards for the Manitoba Egg Farmers and also Egg Farmers of Canada for over 26 years. So I've had a lot of time there as well, developing policy and working with policy. So it's been a great time, and I've just retired off the boards. So now I'm going to become a real farmer and stay home and do more hands-on work. So looking forward to that.
And I love that when you said retired, it didn't mean that you were stopping farming. It just meant
no.
We're not going to see you in Ottawa as often.
That's right. That's exactly right.
I love it. Now, so to that point, let's talk about policy, because I get to come at this. I love this podcast, Ag Matters, and it's fun being somebody that is, honestly, I'm just a consumer. So when I talk to somebody like yourself, I want to see the best product on the shelf. That's all there is to it. And it was something that, getting to be involved in work like this, where I started to realize that as a consumer and as a Manitoban that wants to see income into the province through agriculture, the policies and the political side of this is critical. So what is it that somebody like yourself or farmers in general, what are they looking for the consumer to do to get involved on that policy front?
I think the biggest thing is get knowledgeable, have a conversation with a farmer. I think that's probably number one, because you can read a lot of things on the internet and you can do a lot of research and that's helpful to get your base. But to get a good realization of what farmers need, what agriculture needs as a whole, talk to a farmer. That's your best bet. And there's plenty of places to do that. There's you can go to different websites, just search up a farm name, click on it, and I'm sure that farmer, if he or she have a website, they'd be more than happy to talk to you and talk about things that agriculture would like or would need. And then we can also talk to the consumer to find out what they would like and they would need. And there's got to be that happy medium in between. Doesn't always fit, but if you work towards that happy medium or that happy outcome, so it's a win-win-win situation, everybody gains, and it's totally better for the whole province as a whole as well.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, because I know you've sat on, well, like you said off the top, like 20 years of boards. What is something that you did in those years that you said, like, this was a big win for us policy-wise?
I think the latest one that I can think of, and it has to do more with Manitoba and the province in Manitoba, and that was to get some building codes in that better suited agriculture. Agriculture has different ways of building buildings than they do in commercial situations. And we should as well, because we're totally different. We're farming with animals, so it's different. So we've worked hard on that. The work still remains. We want to do the best job we can with our livestock. Plus, we want to be safe and everything else. And still, the end goal is to make sure that consumer is happy with what he or she is getting in their store or in their fridge or eating every day. Like, we produce eggs, so we're concerned that our consumer loves eggs and wants to eat more. So, and that's one of our main jobs.
Well, so let's stay on there, because that to me would have never been a thought that it needed to, there needed to be policy there. Like, so it's, I guess this is, and going back to, like you said, let's talk to the farmers. As someone that's had people around him build houses or knows of investors that built large scale buildings, it's totally different. And if that policy isn't in place, now the farmer has to fight in order to get what they need, delaying the inevitable better product.
Exactly. And if it's something that's there that the farmer doesn't like, or it's much more difficult, or it puts us into a financial situation where, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't build that then. Maybe I won't expand. Maybe the next generation won't jump in. Like there's a lot of, in any policy, there's a lot of ripple effects that you really should take a look at. Do you get them all? And have you considered everything? And that's why it's important to have a discussion around a policy, to see what the consumer thinks, see what the retailer thinks, see what the farmer thinks, and try and mesh something to get a good product in the end. And policies are made to be changed later on because times change. We have new technology, new farming methods. Consumers see things in a different light. So don't be afraid to change a policy if you can make it better for everyone.
Oh, and I love that, because this was something that we wanted to blend into there is policy on and for lack of a better term, off the farm, right? Because it's and I think you hit it there is when they do have conversations, and if I'm not mistaken, our egg board is extremely, Manitoba egg producers or egg farmers, fantastic at understanding the balance between what the farmers need and what the consumers need. Because if someone's not purchasing, we don't have a sustainable product. If no matter how clean you've made it, if it's not making money for the farm and the farm doesn't continue, it's not sustainable. So how do we do that on and off the farm mix and match? And if you can kind of give us some insight into how those boards do communicate to the consumer.
Well, I think it's about building a relationship. It doesn't matter which government is in power. We build a relationship with the bureaucrats, with the government that's in power. We do farm tours. There's a chamber breakfast. We will attend as egg farmers. You have to get to know these people so that you can work with them. Because if you just come in hammering, I want this, they're just going to say, okay, there's the door, and you know your way out, right? And that doesn't help. We need to be able to have good relationships so that we can speak to each other, and might not always agree in the end, but you have to have that ability to contact somebody. So MEF, or Manitoba Egg Farmers, has been phenomenal at building relationships and not being afraid to have those conversations. Or like our farm alone, we've had many politicians have come to our farm, and I don't care what party they belong to. I just want to make sure they have good agriculture policies that fits everybody. And when somebody comes to them and says, well, those egg farmers are doing this, they're not doing right, they're not treating their animals. And they can say, no, I've been on an egg farm, and here's where it is, and here's their website, and they do a really good job. This is how they get to what you need, right? So all those relationships are amazing. There's no different than doing this podcast. It's a way of reaching people with another voice for them to understand where we come from.
Well, and I was fascinated when I started looking into and reading public trust and the data that's coming out of there. And I shouldn't be shocked, because I mean, obviously when you look at a farmer and you look at multi-generational farmer, and every farmer I have ever had a conversation with, the first thing is leave the land better than when I found it. And ensuring that it's done right, because this is what I'm giving my next generation, and they're going to give, like, the concept of this is going generation to generation is so strong within farmers that it builds that public trust, so that, like you're saying, when they make those relationships and they knock on the door at the Chamber of Commerce, or down at Parliament or wherever it might be, that farmer has that immediate respect to be able to say, we need this, and it will be for the better good, because I'm thinking about my kids.
Right. And I guess the other side of that is our farmers have to be willing to adapt to those new things. And some of us struggle with that. I mean, I'm getting of the age where I get a little bit more stubborn. I don't know what it is, but we have to be willing to change and adapt. Does that mean having electric units on our yard that we've never had before? You have to be open to change, or new ways of working with environment or ventilation, all these things. So it is two-sided. It's not just government and consumers have to understand what we want. We have to also understand what they want, and how can we achieve that and still be sustainable financially, move it to the next generation, society, everything. We all have to get there at the same time. And then in the end, they have a perfect egg product with all the protein packed into that thing, and they can be happy about it. It's very seldom I run into anybody that says, well, really, I don't like eggs. Like most people, oh, I love eggs. Well, awesome. Come to my farm. I'll show you how your eggs are made. We'll give you a free dozen eggs or whatever, and get them to understand how we do things. So,
and I know, obviously, given your background, we focused on eggs, but it is every single part of agriculture needs to operate that way, where it is industry, the farmer, and the consumer all communicating, working together, and adapting to each other. That's what makes for the better product that gets out there that's sustainable, and that literally can fund our whole province. So
absolutely.
I don't think you could have summed it up any better than what we just did. And we'll leave it at that, because we'll have to get you back on to talk a lot more about public trust and what it means to do some of this stuff, because I know your feelings are strong. We've discussed some of this stuff before. But Kurt Siemens, thank you so much for joining us. As always, a pleasure to get your input. And as we said at the start of the show, ag matters, and we love it when people come in and share their heart and share their story on agriculture with us.
Thank you very much, Jordan, for having me on today. I appreciate it.